For the last several weeks, we've been diving into the benefits and concerns with supervised psychedelic treatment for veterans. And more veteran groups are calling on the VA to invest more in these alternative treatments for PTSD, depression, and suicide attempts. So joining us now live is Matthew Whiz Buckley, a retired Navy fighter pilot and founder of the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, to talk about his personal experience with these kind of treatments. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Melanie, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So as an acclaimed Navy fighter pilot flying 44 combat sorties over Iraq, please walk us through the emotions and difficulties you experienced transitioning from military combat to civilian life.
It's a great question. It was night and day. I left a fighter squadron where you trusted the women and the men in that ready room with your life, or they weren't a part of that organization. And then, believe it or not, I transitioned to Wall Street, where not to put too fine a point on it, there were people who would push their own mother in front of a bus to make $1, and just no mission, right? Chasing money, just and stepping all over each other. It was a pretty tough transition going, from a fighter squadron in the cockpit of an F-18 Hornet just out there in the Central Valley in Lemoore to a Wall Street firm. So it wasn't a smooth transition, and it was full with a lot of trauma, which added to the trauma that I incurred serving our country.
Right. And how did you find out about psychedelic treatment, and why did you think that was going to be a good fit for you?
Oh, man, great question. So about 3-4 years ago, I started the No Fallen Heroes Foundation to try and end veteran suicide. So, Melanie, depending on the number you listen to, Uncle Sam's number of 17 or Duke University and the University of Alabama's recent numbers of 44 veterans taking their own lives every day, I said I got to do something. I had no idea what I was going to do. How do you stop veterans from taking their own lives? Buy them suits, help them write a resume? No clue. A buddy of mine said, hey, Whiz, there's a group of Navy SEAL veterans that go down to Mexico and they do psychedelic-assisted therapy to heal their PTS and their traumatic brain injuries. Would you want to go? And I got to be honest with you, going down to Mexico to do drugs with Navy SEALs sounded like a great weekend, right? I had absolutely no clue what I was in for, Melanie. It was without a doubt the most spiritual and life-changing experience of my life. I healed some incredibly tough childhood trauma that I carried into the military. I lost 16 brothers flying fighters for the Navy, and 3 due to suicide. And this healing cleansed me. It cleaned me up. I don't know if you can be a good drinker, Melanie. I was a bad drinker. I couldn't even look at alcohol for 8 months after this treatment. Now I can, have a glass of wine with a steak type of thing, but old Whiz, a glass of wine was the bottle. So it was without a doubt the most life-changing and saving experience of my life. And I got back. Matter of fact, if you've ever seen the movie Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg or read the book Lone Survivor, I went down with famous Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell, and I got home and I said, this is how I'm going to help end veteran suicide.
Wow. So, Matthew, I want to put the emphasis on supervised psychedelic treatment, because this isn't, you're not going to a guy in a van with a tie-dye shirt asking for shrooms. This is something that needs to be supervised, right? Is that what you would recommend to veterans?
The place we went in, just south of San Diego, right? We went to San Diego. You do it in San Diego, it's a felony, you're going to jail. You go an hour south of Mexico to a place called the Mission Within, and it can save and change your life. So you nailed it. The Mission Within in Mexico is half spiritual and half clinical. There's nurses there, there's doctors, you do blood tests, you're on an EKG. So you nailed it. I have got to stress this. This was not fun. This is not recreational. The medicine I sat with is called ibogaine. 14-hour experience, and it's a waking dream. It's no hallucinations or anything like that. It was I lifted my eye shades up. There's the nurses, there's my brothers going through the treatment. Eye shades back on in a minute. So you nailed it. The 2 rules of engagement, Melanie, with psychedelic assisted therapy is set and setting. You have to have the right mindset going into this, that I want to heal, and also the right setting, right? Anybody who's I've talked to that are like, oh, I kind of had a bad experience with something. I'm like, let me guess. Your mindset wasn't tightened up and you were in the wrong setting. Yeah, how'd you know? So you nailed it. These are therapeutic use And that's what I'm advocating for. I'm not talking about legalization for fun, because like I said, you're not taking ibogaine and going anywhere. You're taking ibogaine and you're doing some deep cleansing and healing a lot of the trauma that you incurred serving this country.
Absolutely. And last question, do you think that this is a viable and sustainable method of treatment for not just veterans, but for people of all sorts experiencing PTSD? And like you said, they have to be within the right mindset for that, right?
You nailed it. This is the closest alligator to my boat right now are veterans. And first responders, because a lot of veterans get out of the military, they take off that uniform and they put on a local uniform. They don't take off their trauma. Now they're a local first responder or at the state level. So these medicines can heal anyone potentially suffering from trauma. Trauma's trauma. We tend to trauma shame or trauma grade the military, right? I wasn't a ground guy. I wasn't like Marcus Luttrell, a Navy SEAL, close up. I'm up at 40,000 feet in air conditioning. And, you know, the scariest part of my missions was landing back aboard the ship at night, low on fuel. So these medicines can potentially heal anyone with trauma. So veterans, if America's going to look up to veterans, maybe we can lead the way. If you're looking at me saying, hey, this guy was a Navy fighter pilot and he's advocating for this, hey, the government at least trusted this guy. Maybe I can look into these things. So I'm here to tell you, they saved and changed my life. We give healing grants to veterans and first responders and their family members, because their family members serve too, to go sit with these medicines. And Melanie, if I'm not on a retreat, it'll bring a tear to my eye when I get a text message that says, after a retreat, that says, Whiz, I don't want to kill myself anymore. And I can't tell you how good that makes me feel. So I'm doing my best to advocate for this, and I'd appreciate all the help and support. If you can, this isn't going to come from our lawmakers down. This is a we the people moment. They're kind of looking to us to say, hey, is this kind of working?
Sure.
So this is definitely a lead, follower, get out of the way, and we're doing our best to lead.
Matthew Whiz Buckley, thank you again so much for joining us this morning. Again, a very important conversation that we love to continue to have and continue to follow as this method of treatment develops. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your morning.
God bless. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye, and thank you for your service.